everyone. Welcome to Here We Are, Brattleboro's community talk show. I'm Wendy O'Connell, and today from our community we have Peter Amidon. We're pretty excited. Peter is a musical wonder, a singer, dancer, storyteller, choral director. He also arranges, composes, and publishes music. Peter's the choral director of the Guilford Church Choir and co-director of Hallowell Singers. And you can't talk about Peter without mention of his wife and partner, Mary Alice. Together for over 40 years and counting, they have been beloved performers and teachers of traditional music, dance, and storytelling. Welcome, Peter.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well,
Wendy, thank you so much.
I hope we live up to the thrill. We'll have to do something thrilling. We'll see how that goes. Peter, you know, there's so many things that you have done in the community and for the community. Mm-hmm. And I know that 23 last year was a big year for you and Mary Alice, with award winning for one thing, which is pretty exciting. And we might as well just talk about that right off the bat. The New England Dancing Masters, of which you are part of, they gave you a Lifetime Achievement Award.
Yes.
Which is pretty exciting.
Yeah. Well, we, Andy Davis and Mary Kay Brass and Mary Alice and I were all music teachers, and we'd get together back in the 80s this was, and we would share dances. And all of us, none of us had actually any music education courses before. So we were just singing and dancing with the kids. That's what we did with them. And we were all contra dancers and we were all traditional singers, so that's the material we used. And we'd go and we'd exchange dances and songs. And then one day I said, I really want to have when I do my residencies, at this point I was doing residencies of traditional dance and singing and storytelling, and I said I want to be able to leave a cassette tape behind of the music so they can keep dancing without me, because they were dancing to my accordion playing. And I said, why don't we do that, Andy and Mary Kay and Mary Alice, and we might as well make a book of it, and we'll call it Chimes of Dunkirk, and what do we call ourselves, Vermont Dancing? No, we'll call ourselves New England Dancing Masters. And in a very short time, within a year, without us doing any publicity work, it was selling all over the country. Oh, wow. It was a niche that needed, and music, elementary school music teachers were purchasing it to use in their classrooms, and it was just, we had no idea that was going to happen. So it became, we've done it for 30 years, and we have several books and CDs. And so the Country Dance and Song Society is sort of like the umbrella organization of traditional dance and song in the United States, and it was really an incredible honor to get that.
The other great honor too was the Brattleboro Unsung Hero Award from Compassionate Brattleboro. That you and Mary Alice received.
Well, that was really, I have to say, that was pretty wonderful to get. One of my favorite things to do is to create a chorus for a public event in Brattleboro. And I've done it a lot of times for the 4th of July parade. We did it for the week after 9/11. We got a chorus of like 300 people to be at a moment where we were all kind of reflecting on what had just happened, and I've just done it for other just kind of public, sort of more or less public funerals or memorial services. And so that had a lot to do with. I just love doing that.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's a big part of what you do is bringing it to the community. I have to say, Nancy Olson did a great job doing an article about you getting that award. But when I saw that the Amidons were getting an Unsung Hero Award,
that was good.
It threw me a little.
It was great. Yeah.
You actually grew up in Monterey, Mass, which sounds like it's on the seacoast, which is not.
It's quite inland. It's the southeast corner of Massachusetts, near Stockbridge and Lennox and Great Barrington and that area.
Great.
It's a town of 500 people, little tiny church, little post office, little general store.
How sweet.
Wonderful place to grow up.
Was it?
Oh, yeah.
Did you have siblings?
I have an older brother, Skippy, and my little brother, and my brother Philip is next, and then Jay is my baby brother, who's 68.
Four boys.
4 boys, that's right.
Whoa.
Yeah, we played in the woods all the time. Well, we watched a lot of television. This is the 50s. But when we weren't watching TV, we played in the woods all the time. We just, it was great.
You were really close to Alice's Restaurant.
Oh, yes.
Right?
That's right.
And Pete Seeger across the Hudson.
That's right, yeah. Well, Alice's Restaurant that was Stockbridge. I lived in Stockbridge, and Officer Obie would be there directing traffic, and I didn't ever know Arlo Guthrie. I never met him, but he was certainly part of the whole,
Yes.
the whole atmosphere there, and it was pretty
Yeah,
wonderful, really a great place to live for music and arts events.
Well, yes. Well, Tanglewood was nearby, and yeah, a lot of art and music. Did you play instruments back then?
Well, when I went to a one-room schoolhouse in Monterey that had like maybe 2 or 3 grades, and this woman, Mrs. Watson, came in one day, and she said, "I'm going to offer for free violin lessons or piano lessons to anybody who wants." And I hadn't had any at that point, and for some reason I said to my mom, "Mom, I want to take both." So I took both, and I took private lessons with her, and my mom drove me to Pittsfield at one point. I never got very good because I never practiced. Then I went to a music camp, an overnight music camp, when I was 13, and it was I got a full scholarship to a 6-week overnight music camp, which I like to tell people, but the backstory is that they always gave one full scholarship to a local kid, and all the other kids were coming from the city, these really kind of sophisticated kids who had done Bach and Beethoven since they were born, and I was the only one who auditioned. So, so I got to go to this 6-week overnight classical music camp when I was 13, which is an amazing, that was kind of, I always think I did a lot of latent learning then that really paid off later when I became.
It sounds like it, because it was classical.
It was classical. It was all they allowed, yeah. One time I was playing some Scott Joplin in one of the rooms, and Mrs. Sant'Ambrogio came in and said, "We do not play that kind of music here."
That kind of got you in the music world.
It sort of did, but ironically then I kind of stopped all music. After that I didn't take any lessons. I didn't do much music in high school. I was head of the, and I played a lot of piano. I played, and I'd improvise on the piano, and I'd play Scott Joplin and read other music. And then I was in college I was a math and computer major at Miami University in Ohio. Math and computer, and I was in Navy ROTC, and then after my sophomore year I dropped out of ROTC, and I went to Tanglewood, and I saw the Emperor Concerto by Beethoven. I was by myself, and I just started crying, and I just said, "This is what I want to do. I just really just want to do music."
Wow.
And that when I went back, I got a cello teacher, and I hitchhiked back from Massachusetts to Ohio with a cello and a guitar and a backpack. Which helped me get rides, by the way. It's not a bad strategy. And I walked up into Miss Pottiger's room, the cello teacher, and she didn't know who I was. And I said, "Hi, I'm Peter Amidon. I want to be a music major." And it was like being born again.
Wow,
it was
that's
really
so
amazing.
great. So you go through school, you're a music major, you are a conscientious objector, I believe.
I worked on being a conscientious objector when I realized that I had to deal with that. And then the lottery happened, and I got a really high number. So that was
Somewhere along the line, you end up in Cambridge,
right?
When the Cambridge folk music scene was really happening. It was sort of the second wave, I think, of folk music.
Yes, it was the second wave, exactly.
Did you go right into that scene?
Well, no, I didn't. I actually I had played cello in college, and then I switched to viola da gamba, which is a Renaissance stringed instrument similar to the cello, and that's all I was playing then was viola da gamba. So I went to Cambridge and worked at McLean Hospital as a mental health worker, and I found Marlene Montgomery, who was a really gifted musician who was doing a whole kind of different way of doing early music. It was almost like I almost say, sort of like a hippie way of doing it, like a hippie early music, or a hipster early music.
A little
group.
casual?
Well, they did drones, and they didn't use vibratos, and they had these big, and they were trying to recreate what it was actually like to be in a medieval or a Renaissance ensemble. So I was really attracted to that, and I was playing viola da gamba with them. But then I met Annie O'Brien in a therapy group, and she played concertina, English concertina, which is like a little octagonal accordion sort of. And she played me Irish tunes, and she just brought me to my first Irish tune sessions, where I first played with viola da gamba, but later I sold it and got a fiddle. My first contra dance, my first folk music, folk singing parties, and Morris, again, I was born again a second time, actually. It was like really, I said, this is it. This is the music I want. Because I felt it was very physical. The music was very physical. It was with people. It was not so much performing like early music is like you're up there and there's an audience, and it's, this is like singing with people, dancing with people, and the songs were much more powerful and just rooted in the earth. And it was really extraordinary.
Yeah. You meet Mary Alice.
I meet Mary Alice.
You meet Mary Alice at a contra dance.
At a contra dance. Absolutely right. Yeah. She walked in. We walked in together, and she danced with somebody, and I danced with somebody, and then she asked me to dance. She had bare feet, little white dress, looking really beautiful, and we danced. And after the dance, you normally go ask somebody else to dance in a country dance, but we just started talking, and then he said, line up for the next. Oh, we might as well do the next. We did every dance that night.
Wow.
And then I had to go to work in my mental hospital because I was working nights then. But then, then the next night we went to another event there, and it was just. And so she and I were both discovering folk music together, basically. We were both in a similar place. We were both kind of musicians who had just discovered this incredible world of traditional music and dance.
You do a little traveling,
yes.
The two of you.
So we were touring with the Bread and Puppet Theater. Larry Gordon invited us to join the Word of Mouth Chorus, which was he later on formed, people know him mostly for Northern Harmony and Village Harmony now, but the Word of Mouth Chorus was his group then that sang sacred harp music, early American folk hymns, Balkan village music, and early music. Mm-hmm. And we toured with them with the Bread and Puppet Theater doing a puppet show based on a Josquin Mass across the United States. And when we were in Ann Arbor, Michigan, we bumped into John and Tony, who were real heroes of Mary Alice and I. We learned all of their songs, especially the stuff from their Noel Sing We Clear album, and we'd seen them once. So we were really excited to talk to Tony Barrand. And we told him, this is 78 in Ann Arbor, and we told him we were going to move somewhere, Montpelier, southeastern New Hampshire, Northampton. We didn't know, and he said, you should move to Brattleboro. And that was it. We had never been here.
So great.
We just moved here on his advice.
Yeah.
And he became a very, very important friend and colleague and mentor for me.
Yes.
And for both of us.
Yeah, for years.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He just died a couple years ago.
He died a couple years ago, yeah. I got a job working at Prospect Park Press.
Oh, yeah.
As and Mary Alice got a job first painting houses and then at the co-op, and there was an incredible, wonderful community of artists and musicians then that we were part of, and that was just fine. And then Becky Graber said they needed a music teacher in Wynn Hall, which is in Stratton Mountain area, and all 1 day a week. So my boss let me do that, and that was just the beginning of eventually becoming a full-time music teacher, even though I didn't have any education. But because it was Vermont, they just let me do it, and it was just, and that was really the beginning of the career that ended up being our career, was those first music teaching jobs in Vermont.
Yes.
Elementary school classroom music teaching.
Yes, I remember my daughter.
Yes.
My daughter was at Academy School, and you guys came into Academy School.
That's right, yes.
So that was back in the 80s.
That was the 80s,
as well.
That's correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, did storytelling come out of teaching?
Yes, it did. There was one class, a fourth grade class on Newfane, that was just, I would just feel sick to my stomach driving on the days that I had to teach them. It was awful. They were just awful, and I didn't know how to handle them. And Becky Graber and some other music teachers, Andy Horton, and other people had done storytelling as part of their work with children. I learned a story. I learned how to, just get this from the Grimm's folk tales, and I said, I'm going to tell you a story. And for once, they got quiet, and they all gathered around, and I told them this folk tale, not very well, but I told it, and they were so quiet, it actually kind of made me nervous. And then. And when I finished, some of them said, "Tell it again. Tell us another one." Oh. So I started just doing storytelling as a part of my music teaching.
Yes.
Mary Kay also did, and Andy also did. It was like we would just, because, partly because it was just so fun for everybody, but also because otherwise kids will not hear stories.
Yes.
They don't. It's such a great thing for children to hear a well-told story, whether it's a folk tale or some other kind of story, without a book, without props, just told.
Yes, it's a powerful thing, and I think it's so interesting how that's been rediscovered in the last between 5 and 10 years for adults as well.
Yes.
And becoming a storyteller and learning how to share that kind of narrative with people. Yeah, you were on the beginning of that.
It was the beginning of the revival. Then that's true.
Yes, Peter, you've worked a lot with groups of people. You know, and I know that, you know, it was over a period of years, you know, that you started doing more things with people. You did some things at Pinewood Camps.
Yes, quite a lot.
Yes, and Jay Unger's Ashoka Northern Weeks. You and Mary Alice had a Pete Seeger connection, which is pretty cool, and this is back in the early 90s.
Yes, that's true. As I mentioned before about the sacred harp singers that I led at the Old Songs Festivals that were so spiritual and wonderful, and he came to one of them. He was hired by the Old Songs Festival, and he was there, and he came to the Sacred Harp Sing, and later on he wrote me a letter saying that, he said, I've been leading shape note music for 60 years. This is the best shape note leading I've ever seen before. It was wonderful.
Wow.
And he also invited me to come work at his festival and have a shape note sing there. And then the year after that, he asked Mary Alice and me to create a new stage, because at the Clearwater Festival, I always noticed when I went there that people are just, at this Pete Seeger festival, people are just sitting there watching other people make music, and that's not Pete Seeger. He's about people singing together. So it was so wonderful, because he wanted us to create a stage that was a stage of participatory singing, where everybody came to sing together. So we did that for 3 years with him and got to know him and Toshi, and that was pretty wonderful.
That's wonderful.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
It's so great. An icon. I mean,
Yeah,
such an icon for
it's-
so many years.
Absolutely, yeah. I actually am comfortable working with large groups of people. I remember I was doing there was this sacred harp sing I led in the Old Songs Festival that I started leading in the 90s, in the early 90s, and did it for about 25 years, and it was an extraordinary experience. It was kind of had a spiritual feel to it, even though it was at a public festival in Altamont outside of Albany. And there'd be like 150, 200 singers, and half of them had maybe a third of them were kind of seasoned sacred harp singers. Maybe a third of them only sang at the Old Songs Festival with me, and then a third of them hadn't sung it before. And I remember just one year going, it was just overwhelming in a way to think, how can I give these people what they deserve? And one day I thought to myself, what would Shirley do? Shirley was our pastor, Shirley Crockett at the Guilford Church, and she was amazing, and she had the same thing. And she felt like there was so much, and she talked about that. How can I do justice to this responsibility that I have?
Yeah.
And I just felt like I just need to do the best I can, not compare it to last time, not have any expectations, but just do the best I can to make this a meaningful experience for the group. So I think that's that is my modus operandi kind of thing, that I really am really interested in having people have a really great, mostly it's been singing.
Yes.
A really positive singing experience.
Right. And Peter, when you're up there in front of a group of people, whether it's choral directing or storytelling or whatever, I think maybe you've already said it, that you're bringing something to the group. But in terms of the response of the group to you and to the story or whatever it is, what's that dynamic like for you?
I'd like to talk about storytelling, because that's an amazing dynamic. A story, I can practice a story. I do. I always practice a story just by myself, walking around. But then when you tell it to an audience, whether it's adults or children, it's all of us together. I'm telling the story, I'm making my images into the words, and they're hearing the words, and they're creating images themselves, and they're responding in different ways. And they might laugh, and I think, oh, I didn't even know that was funny, or have other. So it's a very dynamic experience, and it's quite like just in the zone because of this kind of group thing that's happening. With singing, I really like to just be. Well, actually, with all of it, the dancing and singing and story, all of them, I really like to be, I'm not an equal member, I know that because I'm the leader, but I really like to, when I'm dancing with children, for example, I wear a wireless headset, and I dance with the children, and I put on music that I really love. And my most important job, and it happens a lot, is just to really have a great time, a really deep time. And sometimes we've been dancing for a while, and the music has been going on, and I stop calling, and the kids aren't talking, and it's just, it's a moment, and they're having the same experience I'm having, and that is the lesson they're getting. That is the deepest lesson they're getting.
That's right.
Basically.
That's right, and it's totally organic.
Oh, it is.
And they're using their bodies.
And it's coming from the dance. It's coming from the dance itself. It's the dance that's happening there. It's not me. It's that.
Yeah, but you're creating it. You're creating the space so that can happen. That kind of brings us to Hallowell. which is, as most folks I think in the community know, is the bedside singing for the dying. And started by, well, Peter was on the front lines of that, and then Kathy Leo took it and ran with the idea of creating this group that has grown exponentially over the last 20 years, been shared nationwide and probably globally even, and is one of the most powerful singing groups on the planet.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's quite a remarkable thing. I know that you get together with the singers beforehand, you know, and talk about and get yourself into a space. You said at one point, let's make the most beautiful chord in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Well, it's when you go into a situation where a family, let's say it's a home, and let's say it's a grandmother, and the grandfather's there, he's well and she's dying, and the family's around, some children, maybe grandchildren. And there's just a lot, even if it's, sometimes you walk in and people are it's kind of buzzing around, the kids are running around, and sometimes they're just really quiet and sad. But in any case, when we start singing, it kind of opens up a space for them. And to grieve. I mean, often people start crying then, which I think is a healthy and good response, because it gives them a chance actually to do the grieving that they don't really have time to do with all the busyness of taking care of someone who's dying. So when you go in there, you might have an idea of something, what you might want to sing, reading the emotions in the room that are whatever the situation is. If someone's in a room and dying and there's family around it, there's a lot going on in there emotionally. And so we try to be very quiet, very small. Quiet, I mean not like shaking hands or not talking, but just singing. We might come in humming, and then we sing, say, do you want another one or a couple more songs? And then we sing the last song, and then we hum out. That's an individual sing when somebody's close to death. You know, we just actually hum out, so they don't have to say goodbye to us, and the leader will maybe stay back to have closure. But yeah, we've had some pretty. I've had some, and afterwards we have a little circle ourselves, and often that's where we might cry, you know, just if it's been really emotional. But I always feel after that like there's nothing else I'd be rather doing. It's just that. It's very, very satisfying.
Yeah, satisfying and also moving in so many different ways.
Yeah.
Being a choral director, also getting used to speaking in front of people, storytelling, whatever you're doing, doing the Hallowell work. Some of it, did you ever think of it as a kind of ministry?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is a ministry. It's a service. I think it's a ministry in the way that I really want to keep your ego out of it. I think what I often, I can get excited and start to want to be funny. I like being funny and I like telling jokes, and I need to be careful about that. But I think the most important thing is to be really honest with what's happening. And sometimes, often actually, just being really honest with what's happening is actually what creates humor that really makes people feel relaxed.
Right.
You know, it's just, and that's the best kind of humor in a way, is when something actually really happening with the group that everybody says and I kind of say it. And,
yes, it's a relief.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And when I'm singing with a group, when I hear that it's less than beautiful, I think maybe they can, if I think they can do better than that, I'll say, you know, that was really great, but it can be better, you know, and just really work on whatever that is. So that's kind of like it, because I know that it's not lecturing them. I know that they'll have a better experience if the music is beautiful. That's the same thing with the dancing also. I know they'll have a better experience if there's more beautiful choreography, if they're all flowing more with the music, that that'll be a deeper experience for them, children included.
Yeah, and so you are keeping your ears and eyes out for that all the time.
All the time.
You're always listening.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
Piano accompaniment, whatever. Just, you know, let that ring a little bit, you know, and maybe arranging also. So why don't we have the women sing by themselves first, and then we'll all come in, no, that doesn't work, let's try the men, you know, that kind of thing. Just arranging on the spot.
One thing I did want to mention was your family.
Yeah.
You and Mary Alice and the boys singing. And at one point, you took them on a tour.
We did.
Overseas.
We did. The headmaster of the Putney School, when Sam went there one time, I was chatting with him, and he said, oh, you're musicians, you should pull your kids out of school and go on a tour. And that just like, whoa, wow, you know. And so we started talking about it, and then I said one day, we were talking about it in September for the following calendar year. And I said one day at dinner, I said, you know, we got to choose a time for us all to have a family meeting about whether or not we're going to do this trip next year for the whole year and pull you out of school. And Sam and Stefan, who were 10 and 13, then said, no, we don't have to. No, we're doing it. We're just doing it. That was it. That was the meeting. It was over. Yeah.
Oh, wow, wow.
Yeah, that's it. You're right.
And had they been singing with you in public?
Yeah,
before
they had
that?
been. We've been performing a lot together.
You had.
Since Sam was 7 and Stefan was 4 was our first family concert together, and so they kind of built up. And then we did that tour, a cross-country tour. It was kind of northeast in the autumn, and then we had a little break, and then we had a U.S. tour through the winter and spring, and then we had in England and Ireland at the end.
What a great
And it was amazing.
Oh,
it was
I'll
really,
bet.
really wonderful.
A wonderful
Yeah,
experience.
It was great.
Yes.
And then after that, interestingly, we just kind of went back to our duo stuff, and they got into their band, Popcorn Behavior, which was their dance band that they made.
Mm-hmm. And they have continued on.
They have.
And not only that, but they have married
Yes.
2 women who are
Yes.
both accomplished
That's true.
musicians as well.
That's true. Stefan and Zara Bodhi. Stefan married Zara Bodhi, who's one of the great singers of the world, and and Stefan is just doing he's a music teacher, and he has a children's choir at the BMC, and he does so many different kinds of music. He plays percussion in various orchestra things, and then Sam married Beth Orton, the famous pop singer, and and he has his own career that's just kind of indescribable. He does traditional songs. It's kind of a marriage of traditional songs and free jazz. That's like maybe the quickest way to say it, because he loves both. And he plays with, he does solo concerts with the band that he hires, and he does concerts with jazz musicians. He does concerts with orchestras. And with other traditional singers. So.
And he and Beth are in England, is that right?
Yeah, they're in London. That's right.
In London.
That's right.
And you have grandchildren.
That's right.
Are they singing and
Oh my gosh,
dancing?
they are. Yeah, Nancy's Beth's daughter, who came along with the package when Sam married her, and she plays guitar and sings all the time. She's 18, and their son Arthur, who's 12 and his voice hasn't changed yet, is a beautiful soprano and just a great singer. And then in town, Desmond and Vera are in town, and they're 9 and 5. And Desmond performed with us at our New Year's Eve concert last.
Did he have fun?
Oh, it was great. It was really fun.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
What a great, it's just such a great picture, and it's just such a wonderful thing for us to have in Brattleboro, is to see a whole family.
No, we feel
that's
very lucky.
3 generations.
Yeah, that's right, 3 generations.
It's hard to believe, isn't it?
Yeah, that is. It is.
Peter, one thing that I found out about you that I did not know was that you have an amazing memory for poetry, and you have many, many poems memorized.
I do.
Hundreds.
That's, about 120, actually.
About.
Yeah.
Could you entertain us with one?
Sure. Okay, let's see. This is one I've been, is called I Love You, and it's by Billy Collins. Early on, I noticed that when you get off the phone with the children, early on I noticed that you always say it whenever you get off the phone with the children, just as you never fail to say it to me whenever we arrive at the end of a call. It's all new to this only child. I never heard my parents say it, at least not on such a regular basis. And it never occurred to me to miss it. To say I love you pretty much every day would have seemed strangely obvious, like saying, I'm looking at you, when you were standing there looking at someone. If my parents had started saying it a lot, I would have started to worry about them. Of course, I always like hearing it from you. That is never a cause for concern. The problem is now I find myself saying it back to you, if only because just saying goodbye, then hanging up, would make me seem discourteous. But, like Bartleby, I would prefer not to say it as often. Would prefer instead to save it for special occasions, like shouting it out as I leaped into the red mouth of a volcano with you standing helplessly on the smoking rim, or while we are desperately clasping hands before our plane plunges into the Gulf of Mexico, which are only 2 of the examples I had in mind, but enough, as it turns out, to make me want to say it to you right now. And what better place than in the final couplet of a poem where, as every student knows, it really counts. He's one of my favorites, Billy Collins.
Yes.
Billy Collins, Shakespeare, Robert Frost, those are three of my main guys.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great poem.
It is a great poem.
Yeah, he always gets right there.
He does.
He
He's
really,
amazing.
He
Yeah,
really,
yeah.
really does. Peter, this has been really fun.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
I-
I do want to say one other thing.
Yes, please.
Okay. So, a few months ago, Perrin Scott in our church started this thing where we singing visits with people. We just get a bunch of people together, and we go visit someone who's at home and kind of can't get out much, or an assisted living place. And anybody can go, which is really, anybody can go and be part of this group, which is so wonderful. And we've had like an incredible response. We go down to visit this place in New Hampshire, like in Keene, where a couple of our church people are, and like we'll have 19 people come with us.
Oh, wow.
It's incredible.
Yes.
Or we have 12 people come, and it's been really, and I'm surprised we haven't done that before, but it's Hollowell as a specific group, and we're going to visit people we don't know. It's very, very important that the music be very, very good, because it's just a different situation. But in these, I just think this is a whole other way of doing it that anybody can do. Really,
Yes, and so you have a group of people that you can call upon?
Yeah, we send out an email, Perrin organizes it, and we go and we bring our hymnals in, but we might sing some other songs as well.
Yeah.
But it is kind of, ours particular one is a church-based thing, but it
is.
doesn't have to be at
Yeah,
all.
that is a very
It's
cool.
really fun.
That'll probably catch on too.
I hope
betcha.
so. Yeah, I just think it's
It's a community
just,
service.
It's so fun for
Yeah.
apart from the service, it's just so
Yeah.
satisfying for the people who are trying to do it.
Peter, thank you so much.
You're great. You're good at this. Thank you. I had a wonderful time.
You're fabulous. No,
You
it was-
make me feel very comfortable, and I had a really great
Oh,
time.
good.
Thank you.
That's wonderful. Well, it's great for us, and it's great for the
Yeah,
audience to
yeah.
hear a little more of your story.
And you have such a great archive of Brattleboro people. I've been starting to go through them, and it's an invaluable archive.
There are quite a few,
Yeah.
yes, and there are more to come.
Good. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
You're welcome.
Thanks to all of you for being with us for this really fun show today with Peter. He and Mary Alice do so much for this community, and they are so much a part of the fabric of our community. That's putting it mildly. And what's great about it also is that there's always a nice little dose of humor to go along with everything, and it keeps everything light, and we can always connect with that. So thanks to Peter and Mary Alice, and all that they do, and all the people and their whole family. It's going to go on forever.
Yeah.
Thank you. We'll see you next time.